University as Chair of the Australasian Council of Undergraduate Research, known as ACUR, and that's a position I've held since late last year when our founding chair, the late Emeritus Professor Angela Bruce, stepped down from her role, which she'd held since ACUR was established. Now, as many of you may be aware, Angela, our dear friend and colleague, sadly passed away earlier this year, but we're really proud to honour Angela's commitment to learning and teaching, and particularly undergraduate research through collaborative events such as this colloquium. I'm a former Pro-Vice-Chancellor of Learning and Teaching, and I'm a current higher education consultant and adjunct professor in the School of Law and Society at the University of the Sunshine Coast. I'd like to begin today's event by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we live, work and study, and pay respects to elders past and present. I'm joining you here today from the lands of the Cubby Cubby and Jinnabara peoples of the Moreton Bay region and the Turrbal peoples whose land extends from Brisbane to the Moreton Bay regions. And I acknowledge traditional owners across Australia, including any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are attending this event. And I recognise their continuing connection to land, water, culture and kin, and thank them for their careful custodianship of these lands over millennia. So thank you everyone for your interest in attending this fourth Colloquium Series event, which is being conducted as a collaboration between ACUR and the University of Western Australia Community of Practice, which is focused on embedding research into curriculum. And these collaborations reflect our mutual interest in research-based learning as a transformative pedagogical approach that offers a core way to address concerns, particularly these days with the validity of student learning being a concern given the age of generative AI. And we know from decades of research in learning and teaching, which have well documented the benefits that undergraduates gain from engaging in research-based learning during their undergraduate years, including advanced skills in collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, data analysis and interpretation, written and oral communication, the ability to adopt new ideas, processes and technologies, and of course the development of the skills that are required for our next generation workforce that will better meet the needs of employers and help drive our future knowledge economy. And I'd like to sincerely thank our joint host for this event, Lucia Ravi from the University of Western Australia, who's a highly valued member of our ACUR Executive Committee. And ACUR is indeed proud to be associated with such events promoting undergraduate research. And I'd like to thank Lucia for doing the lion's share of the work in organising today's event. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lucia, who will provide further context about the event and, of course, introduce our guest speaker, Dr Peter Ellerton.
Great. Thank you very much, Denise, for that lovely introduction. Yep, as Denise said, my name's Lucia Ravi. I'm a student learning librarian here at the University of Western Australia, and I've also been a convener of the Community of Practice established here on embedding research into curriculum. I would also like to acknowledge that our beautiful university is located alongside the Derbarl Yerrigan on the Swan River, which is on Wajak Noongar Budja. The University of Western Australia acknowledges that we are situated on Noongar land and that the Noongar people remain the spiritual and cultural custodians of their land and continue to practice their values, languages, belief and knowledge. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. We have spoken a little bit about, Denise has spoken about our conviction, I guess, that student engagement and inquiry and research-based learning is recognised as a way to focus on the development of the higher order critical thinking and problem solving in our students. However, these learning aims are notoriously difficult to facilitate and to assure. They're most often hidden parts of the curriculum, as they're not content or knowledge-based, they're not readily reflected in learning outcomes and in assessments. And so the success and the development of our students' critical thinking becomes dependent on the tacit levels of understanding of the value of these critical thinking processes to student learning. So I was really excited to hear Professor Ellerton speak at last year's HERDSA conference about the critical thinking research project that has been developed by his academic team at the University of Queensland, and which they have been actively sharing. Their Teaching for Thinking framework seeks to provide this greater precision and intentionality in the embedding of critical thinking development through inquiry. And it provides a way, I feel, for these important capabilities to be both communicated and formally assessed. And I was also extra excited that they do so by incorporating the affective domain of critical thinking, which helps to bring context, meaning and purpose to student learning, which was, really especially as this counteracts the tendency to see these skills as generic standalone capabilities, which they're not. So